He had 30 seconds to explain why a child with no blood test could still be worth everything he owned. Sung-Ho Yoon sat at the end of a glass table 28 floors above Seoul. 4 lawyers across from him, not his, a court reporter typing every breath. In front of him, 1 folder. Inside it, a question dressed up as paperwork. Did an 11-year-old girl named Bomi have any legal claim to the Yoon name, the Yoon fortune, the Yoon family at all? The lawyer across from him was young, sharp, billed by the hour, and smiled like it cost him nothing. Do-Yun. He asked the question everyone in that room had waited 3 years to ask out loud. Mr. Yoon, confirm for the record, you are not this child's biological father. Sung-Ho didn't blink. He'd expected this question since the night his best friend died in a hospital hallway, gripping his hand, asking for one thing Sung-Ho had never given anyone. Not a meeting, not a merger, a person. Correct, he said, no blood relation. Do-Yun asked the second question, the one built for the evening news. Then why does this succession plan name her an heir, ahead of your cousin, ahead of your sister's children, ahead of people who actually share your blood? Sung-Ho looked at the folder, then at Ariam. She wouldn't meet his eyes. Because blood was never what my best friend asked me to protect, he said. She was. Hey besties, welcome back. If you're doing dishes right now, or driving home with the radio off because you needed something else to think about, stay with me. This one's long. It's about a man told his whole life that loyalty was a business term, and a little girl who taught him it wasn't. By the end, you'll know exactly why a boardroom full of powerful people went silent when an 11-year-old walked in wearing her father's watch. 3 sizes too big, tied on with a hair ribbon so it wouldn't fall off. Rich families perfect a specific cruelty. They let you keep a child as long as she's convenient, then turn on you the moment she's expensive. Sung-Ho Yoon was about to learn his family had been counting the cost of a little girl's love since the day he brought her home. They were just waiting for the bill. It didn't start in a courtroom, it started in a hospital. Sung-Ho and Taemin met at 9, it shouldn't have worked. The Yoon's own things, the Kims fixed them. A delivery truck broke down outside Sung-Ho's academy gate. While their fathers argued over the bill, Taemin showed him how to fix a broken pencil sharpener. That was it. Friends for life. The friendship survived everything that's supposed to kill it. Boarding school, university abroad, 10 years apart while Sung-Ho built his place inside Yoon Industries and Taemin held his father's failing repair shop together, married a woman named Hana who laughed louder than anyone and had a daughter. Bomi. It means one who receives. Sung-Ho missed her birth, missed her first birthday. Second, gifts arrived late, cards signed by an assistant. He told himself money could stand in for presents. Taemin let him believe it. What Sung-Ho never asked, Hana died when Bomi was 4. No warning, no early screening, the kind of illness that catches families who can't afford to catch it first. Taemin raised Bomi alone for 4 years, 2 jobs, no calls to Sung-Ho, not because he didn't need help, because he wasn't going to trade his friend's friendship for his friend's money. Sung-Ho found out about Hana at Taemin's bedside. Same week doctors told Taemin the growth in his lungs wouldn't respond to anything left to try. One evening, that's all it took for Taemin to say it all, 4 years alone, 4 years of silence, and then the real reason he'd called him there. There's no one else, Taemin said. Her mother's family cut us off before she was born. My father's gone, it's you or it's the system, and I've seen what the system does to girls like her. Sung-Ho promised before the sentence ended. Taemin died 11 days later. Bomi was 7. She came home from her father's funeral to a house she'd never seen, owned by a man she'd met 6 times. She brought 2 suitcases and her father's watch. Broken, she wouldn't let anyone fix it. Ever had to become someone's whole world with no warning? 1 word in the comments. Let the algorithm find someone who needs this tonight. Hit subscribe. What this family tried to do to that little girl is going to make your blood boil. No fairy tale. Bomi didn't run into his arms, she barely spoke, ate alone in her room, kept her father's watch under her pillow, bit the housekeeper who tried to take it for cleaning. Grief doesn't always look like tears, sometimes it looks like teeth. Sung-Ho didn't outsource her. He cancelled 2 international trips his first month home with her. The board quietly noted it as the start of something. He learned to braid hair from a midnight video, because there was no woman in that house who knew how, and Bomi wouldn't let the housekeeper near her hair either. He learned she hated silence at bedtime. Silence was what the hospital sounded like, the last week of her father's life. He learned she counted ceiling tiles when scared. He learned she still expected, every day for almost a year, someone to explain this was all a mistake and take her back to the apartment above the repair shop where her father used to hum while he cooked. Nobody came to correct the mistake, there wasn't one. Around month 8, Bomi stopped waiting. The turn came at 2 a.m. Sung-Ho found her on her bedroom floor, trying to fix her father's watch with a butter knife from the kitchen, crying the silent way kids cry when they've decided no one's coming. He sat down next to her, still in his suit. Didn't take the watch, didn't offer to buy a new one, asked her to show him what she was doing. They didn't fix it that night, but the next morning he tracked down a watchmaker 2 neighborhoods from Timin's old shop. 6 Saturdays, CEO and 7-year-old learning to repair a broken watch by hand. When it finally ticked again, Bomi didn't say thank you. She put it on her own wrist, tied with a ribbon, and asked if he'd teach her to fix things too, like her father used to. He said yes before she finished asking. By 9, she called him Appa without hesitation. In front of teachers, in front of the housekeeper, in front of one board member who reported back that the chairman seemed uncomfortably attached to a child with no legal standing in the family. That comment landed exactly where it was aimed. Ariam Yoon, 4 years older, 15 years inside Yoon Industries, building a reputation as steady, precise, patient, waiting for the day Sung-Ho's father stepped back and the board needed someone reliable to bridge the gap. She assumed the company would come to her. She was blood. Blood was the whole system. Bomi wasn't supposed to be part of that math, a child with no blood tie. Adopted out of what Ariam called sentimentality, that should have been a footnote. Instead, 3 years in, it became a clause, standing as a potential beneficiary of the family trust if anything happened to Sung-Ho before Bomi turned 18. Ariam found out the same week her own son got quietly moved down the leadership pipeline. She didn't confront Sung-Ho, too careful for that. She hired an investigator. Do-Yun told him to find anything, any irregularity in the adoption paperwork, any thread to pull. 11 months later he found it, a clerical gap. Bomi's biological mother's family, the ones who cut contact before she was even born, had never formally relinquished parental claim in writing. A technicality. The kind any competent court fixes in an afternoon. But in the hands of a determined lawyer working for a determined cousin, a technicality is a door. And the door Ariam wanted open wasn't really about paperwork. It was about proving, publicly, that Sung-Ho couldn't be trusted to run a billion-dollar company if he'd hand pieces of it to a child who wasn't, in the coldest legal sense, really his. The petition landed on a Tuesday, an envelope his assistant didn't recognize unusual since almost nothing reached him unfiltered. Ariam had it delivered to coincide with a board meeting. By the time Sung-Ho opened it, half the room already knew what was inside. It asked the court to review Bomi's adoption status, to remove her temporarily from the family trust's beneficiary list pending review. And buried in it, the real target, a recommendation that the board examine whether Sung-Ho's attachment to a child with unresolved legal standing made him unfit to remain chairman. Ariam stood in front of 11 board members and delivered concerns so carefully worded no one could call it cruel. Protecting the company, due diligence. She admired what he'd done for that girl. This wasn't about the child at all, just making sure the legal house was in order before a billion-dollar trust sat exposed. Sung-Ho let her finish, didn't interrupt once. Board members later said that silence was the most unsettling part of the whole meeting because everyone in that room knew his silence was never passive. One question when she finished: "Did you tell Bomi's school a court might be reviewing her status before you told me?" Ariam didn't answer. That was the answer. Her investigator had approached Bomi's academy under a records verification pretext, and the school flagged Bomi's file for a routine status check. In a school where every family knows every other family's business within a week, that flag didn't stay quiet. Bomi found out from a classmate, repeating something her mother said at dinner, about the Yoon girl who might not really be a Yoon. Bomi stopped eating in the cafeteria, stopped giving Sung-Ho her daily report after school, a habit 3 years in the making, one he treasured more than any earnings call. When he asked what was wrong, she told him straight, the flat voice kids use once they've decided adults can't actually protect them. Some kids are saying I'm not really your daughter, that a court might decide if I get to stay. He knelt down, same spot as the butter knife years earlier, told her the only true thing he had. You are my daughter because your father asked me to be, and because I chose it every day since. No court decides that, I did, and I'm not stopping now. She didn't cry in front of him. She'd learned not to around people who worked for powerful families. It becomes something people talk about. But she asked one question that night. One he'd carry into every meeting, every deposition, every hearing that followed. If the court says no, will you still keep me? He said yes. He didn't know in that moment if he had the legal power to guarantee it. He promised anyway. Some promises aren't conditional on winning. Ariam missed one thing. Sung-Ho was better at finding gaps than she was at hiding them. He hired his own investigator, Jae-won, quiet, methodical, known for finding what people assumed was unfindable. One question: how did Ariam's team find a sealed adoption record no audit had ever flagged in 4 years? 6 weeks later the answer landed, and it broke the case open. Do-yeon hadn't stumbled onto the gap during routine review. He'd petitioned the court archive for sealed records under false pretext, no legal standing to request them at all. Worse, months before filing, Ariam's team had quietly contacted a representative connected to Bomi's biological mother's family, the same family who'd cut contact before Bomi was born, offering money for a signed statement asserting an active biological claim. The family said no, never signed anything. But the offer itself, in an email trail Do-yeon was careless enough to leave behind, proved the truth. This was never about protecting a filing. It was manufactured. Ever watch someone build an entire attack out of something they weren't legally allowed to touch? Comment, receipts below. That's exactly what was about to hit the boardroom table. Ariam had no idea it was coming. Back to the glass room. 4 months after the petition, Jae-won's findings were already filed with the court, not yet public. Do-yeon still believed he held the stronger hand when he asked his rehearsed question. Confirm for the record, not the biological father. Correct, Sung-Ho said, no blood relation. Then he asked something else. Whether now would be the appropriate time to introduce a supplementary filing, one documenting exactly how the consent gap surfaced, and exactly what outreach had been made to Bomi's biological family in the months before the petition. Do-yeon's smile didn't move, for several seconds. Ariam went still, the kind of still the court reporter later described, off the record, as watching a wall collapse from the inside. The filing was admitted, improperly obtained records, financial outreach to the biological family. A timeline proving the entire challenge existed to destabilize Sung-Ho ahead of a leadership transition, not to fix a clerical gap. No ruling that day. Real courts don't work like movies. But the judge said one thing on the record, quoted in every business paper that covered the case afterward. The consent gap was real and fixable, entirely separate from Bomi's fitness to remain in the family, and the manner in which this petition was built raised serious questions about the conduct of the party who filed it. Translation understood by everyone in that room in under a second. Ariam's case was now on trial, not Bomi's. He'd won, could have ended it there. The board scrambled to reposition within days, sudden, unwavering support for the chairman's judgment. Convenient once the outcome wasn't in doubt. Sung-Ho didn't chase every consequence available to him, didn't push for Ariam's removal though the votes were there. He asked for one private meeting instead. No lawyers, his office. After hours, he told her what he'd told Bomi on that bedroom floor. Some things aren't decided by paperwork. He understood now what 15 years of building toward a future she believed was owed her must have felt like, complicated by a child neither of them planned for. He didn't excuse what she did. The outreach to Bomi's biological family, the improperly obtained filing, the timing engineered to humiliate an 11-year-old in front of her classmates, unforgivable. Even if he found something sad underneath the fear driving it. What he offered wasn't forgiveness dressed as a settlement, a boundary. She'd step back from succession planning permanently, by agreement, not public removal, sparing her family the consequence the board was ready to deliver. In return, she'd never touch Bomi's legal standing, education or place in the family again, for as long as she stayed connected to Yoon Industries in any way. She accepted, not gracefully, but she kept her word. The clerical gap closed in 3 weeks. One afternoon, once nobody was weaponizing it, Bomi's place in the trust was reaffirmed. No further challenge. Sung-Ho told her only what she needed. The court said yes, he said, "You're not going anywhere, I told you I decided, I meant it." She didn't ask for details. 4 years had taught her to trust the shape of his promises even without seeing everything behind them. Instead, a week later, she brought him a small, carefully wrapped package, made herself with the same watchmaker's help. A second watch, sized for a man's wrist, 2 months learned in secret, so he'd always know what time it was when he needed to come home, the way she used to worry that first year that no one ever would. He wore it every day after. Every year on the anniversary of Taemin's death, they still walk to that shop, not because anything's broken, because some promises are better kept in motion than left finished. Journalists searched for a clean headline, mostly failed. It wasn't a simple story, villain cousin defeated, righteous chairman wins, not a simple heartwarming adoption tale either. It was about the quiet danger of families who mistake ownership for love, and the harder work of the ones who choose to build it anyway, without waiting for paperwork to grant permission. Sung-Ho never spoke publicly about any of it beyond what the court required. No interviews about Ariam, no statements for the business press eager to turn his daughter's grief into a succession-planning cautionary tale. The only public line he ever gave came 2 years later, at Bomi's middle school graduation. A teacher asked what he wanted people to understand about his daughter. "She was never something I needed to prove," he said. "She was something I was lucky enough to be trusted with, made it to the end. You already know why this one stuck. In a world of families fighting over what they're owed, it's rare to watch someone fight for what they promised instead." 3 things, like this video. Comment what you would have done in Sung-Ho's position. Subscribe, we are not done with the Yoon family yet. Did Ariam really let go of what she believed she was owed? Or was she just waiting for a quieter moment to try again? Stay close, some people don't lose gracefully, they just wait. We'll see you in the next one.